Ladies and gentlemen, dignitaries on the dais, friends and well-wishers, good afternoon. We are all gathered here today for a very unique and unusual endeavor, an endeavor that has the courage and vision to put the spotlight on a much neglected arena of our lives, grief and the manner in which we deal with the loss of a loved one. An endeavor that demonstrates beyond doubt that it is also possible to once again smile at life and be both useful and productive, while not necessarily having to put the loss of our beloved one behind us, so to speak. And even as Vinita Deshmukh presents before us what is inarguably her bravest work to date, the book Grieving To Healing is more than just her personal journey in coping with the loss of her husband, Vishwas. It is an active contribution to the mechanisms with which we cope with the void left behind by a person integral to our lives. And before I wish everyone harmonious and insightful reading, I'd like to underline the fact that the proceeds of today's book sales will go towards a charitable cause. The entire amount would be donated to Care India Medical Society, which treats cancer patients free of cost and where Vishwas used to annually donate. The book will be available after the program at a discounted price of Rs 250. We are glad to have Ms. Geeta Kalia, Director, Planning and Development of Care India Medical Society, amidst us today. Colonel Fadnavis. A special mention to Viraj Deshmukh, Vinita's son, who gave her a surprise by flying in from California. Having said that, it is now time to meet our esteemed panel of guests. Ms. Amruta Fadnavis, Dr. Mohan Agashe, Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, Dr. Mujumdar, who will join us in some time, Vinita Kamte, and Vandana Patnaik, as well as those of you in the audience. I welcome each one of you on behalf of Vinita Deshmukh and her family. A special mention to Commodore Dilip Mohapatra, who is given the curtain raiser, Vandana Patnaik, who edited the book, and Usha Somayaji, who helped Vinita shape the book. We are extremely happy to have Ms. Amruta Fadnavis as our chief guest of the day. Like Mr. Anand Agashe mentioned in his tribute in the book, Vishwas valued people who had values. Hence, her presence today is apt. Noted educationist Colonel Balasubramaniam, who could not attend today, but is with us in spirit. We are especially glad that Mr. Anil Takalkar, who is translating Vinita's book in Marathi, is also here. We begin with a tribute to Lord Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. Today's Ganesh Vandana will be sung by the very gifted Shubhangi Joshi, our former colleague from the Indian Express. Shubhangi is lead vocalist of Manthan, the talented musical band group. Over to Shubhangi, please.
Good morning, everybody.
चतुराय गानप्राणाय गानान्तरात्मने गानोत्सुकाय गानमत्ताय गानोत्सुकमनसे गुरुपूजिताय गुरुदैवताय गुरुकुलस्थायिने गुरुविक्रमाय गुह्यप्रवराय गुरवे गीतसाराय गीततत्त्वाय गीतगोत्राय धीमहि गुणगुल्फाय गन्धमत्ताय गोजयप्रदाय धीमहि गुणातीताय गुणाधीशाय गुणप्रविष्टाय धीमहि एकदन्ताय वक्रतुण्डाय गौरीतनयाय धीमहि गजेशानाय भालचन्द्राय श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि एकदन्ताय वक्रतुण्डाय गौरीतनयाय धीमहि गजेशानाय भालचन्द्राय श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि
Thank you.
It is now time for us to say it with flowers. May I request Kishore Sidhwani, representing Vishwas's Affinity Circle and former Vice President of Atlas Copco, to please present a bouquet to our chief guest, Amruta Fadnavis. Mr. Sandeep Kardekar, would you please felicitate Dr. Mohan Agashe? Mr. Anil Takalkar, I request you to welcome Dr. Natarajan with flowers. Vinita Kamte will be welcomed by Vandana Patnaik. Now, Viraj Deshmukh, Vinita's son, will say a few words. Viraj, please.
Thanks. Thank you so much for everyone for being here today. It's a really special day for me, for my mom especially, and for our family. It's been quite a tough year for us, as you all can imagine. You know, we miss our dad so much. You know, I'd like to start off, of course, by saying that my dad was a great man, and he left a great legacy behind for all of us. He was a man of principles, of values, and we're also proud of him, today. But really, his amazing and loving wife, my mom, she is taking his legacy to a much higher level through this book. So once you read the book, you will see the love that she had for him, the unconditional love that she had for him as a wife. And the book will kind of show you what a wonderful man he was. So I want to thank my mom for, really cherishing my dad's memories through this fantastic book. And it's something that I personally will treasure all my life. So as far as the book is concerned, I think for each one of us who is or was blessed by a special partner, this book will definitely hit you in the right places, because it addresses so many different aspects of our relationships and love and affection. So I'm going to keep a copy of this book for myself and read it. Each time I need to think about my own relationship with my own wife. It's going to help me kind of be a better husband, because I'm going to learn from my mom's unconditional love for her husband and read how good a husband my father was through this book. So this book, like I said, means a lot for us. A special mention for my mom. I want to say, my sister, she gets worried a lot, and I live in the States, so when my sister calls me, she kind of is concerned about my mom and how she would be doing without my dad. But I tell my sister not to worry about it, because my mom is a very strong person, and this book is the perfect example how she's turned the biggest adversity of her life into probably one of the biggest accomplishments of her life. So, I'm very proud of my mom. She's a very strong woman. I know that she's going to get stronger and, better through this through this big loss for us. And again, I want to congratulate my mom for being so strong through all of this and inspiring all of us. So thank you, Mama, for being a great mom. And we all miss my dad, so I don't want to break down about my dad anymore. So I'm probably going to leave it at that. But again, thanks again for showing up here today. I encourage you all to read this book. It's going to be very inspiring, I think, for all of you. And thanks to all the chief guests who've made it here today as well. So that's all I have to say. Thanks again.
I now request our friend and president of Global Talent Track, Manjiri Gokhale Joshi, to say a few words about Vishwas, following which Vinita will address the audience. Manjiri, please.
Good morning. The metrosexual man started emerging on the Indian horizon somewhere in the 90s. Oblivious to the patriarchal norms and mores around him, he was gentle, loving, caring, and soft-spoken. Amidst the clamor of society to demonstrate the macho image through aggression and unbridled ambition in exchange for a family who rarely saw him, he made strides towards feminism, disregarding generations of gender stereotypes. Among societal norms that still allowed or disallowed women to pursue their education and work after they got married, he was the quiet anchor who supported his partner's steps towards her dreams. And the most beautiful aspect of this man was that he never pretended that he was doing anything unusual. That was just him. In parts of India and pockets of the world, this metro man is still to make an appearance. Even today, taking care of your own child is classified as helping your wife. And being partner to a public persona calls for a rise above pettiness propagated by retrograde naysayers. But even as true gender equality takes its own sweet time to catch up with the world, I lost the first metro man I had ever encountered in my life, Vishwas Deshmukh. Vishwas Deshmukh was all of this and more, and such was the grace of his presence, he never asserted his unique qualities, so ahead of his time to any of those around him. Fortunately for him, his extraordinary wife, Vinita, and beautifully brought up two children, Riya and Viraj, admired and valued every aspect of Vishwas there was. Like all of us do, they miss his physical presence with far greater intensity. The loss is immense, but the love is still intact. Let me now invite on stage the inimitable author, journalist, activist, friend, whose love and respect has brought all of us here today to be with her, the highly accomplished Vinita Deshmukh.
Good afternoon, especially to Amruta for her busy schedule and still being here, all my friends on the stage and everyone here. Picking up the beads. I generally give an impromptu speech, but today I'm not in a position. Picking up beads. I'm just trying hard now to pick up the strewn beads of life that you had so beautifully amalgamated into a necklace of love, harmony, and peace. I'm trying, with my fingers wavering, the beads slipping out of the fingertips, the eyes missing to thread them adroitly, my precious pendant lost up the hill. What will I make this necklace to be? One of garnets, pearls, or emeralds? These precious gems have lost their sheen, my wavering fingers for the pendant searching. My mind tells my fingers to search for rosemary beads. They don't need no pendant, they go round merrily. As my fingers twirl them, I can chant your name, but the monotony of these, unable to catch the spirit of thee. The pendant is a star attraction in any necklace. It lines up beads and keeps them in proper place. My precious pendant, ruthlessly snatched away by God. My fingers are wavering. Beads have lost the cord. Death is a part of life. It is unarguably the ultimate reality. Through various rituals post-death, we are told about the journey of the soul. To ensure its smooth journey, we are told that if we mourn, the soul will not be set free. We are urged to get over grief as soon as possible. I was also part of this belief and mindset. My parents and my in-laws, who I was also close to, passed away. I accepted it as the natural process of birth and death. However, after Vishwas has passed away, it has been a totally different experience for me. The death of a spouse, I now believe, through research and through talking to others in such situation, is a completely different feeling. I think that's because your relationship is entwined in one another. You are with the spouse not only in your outward journey, but knowingly or unknowingly in your inward journey too. You become each other's friend, parent, companion, consultant, stalker, punching bag, but still, your spouse is an integral part of your life, home, mind, your heart, and your children. And that's why when your spouse dies, you are hit the hardest. You feel as if just a half of yourself is left in you. I lost Vishwas within a few minutes, unexpectedly. However, whichever way and whichever age you lose your spouse, the grief, I think, is equally deep. So much so that you suddenly realize your identity is not because of your professional acumen, but because of your personal relationship. When you lose that, the vacuum is so huge that your achievements are no solace. I realized also that grieving is a natural consequence of your loss, and suppressing it is unnatural. We do so because we are socially conditioned to do. When Anna Hazare called me up for condolences, he told me, memories will flood all your life. Put your stone on your heart and keep walking. Don't look behind. When he told me, my wounds were fresh, but so I did not understand what it meant. When we lose our spouse or any of our loved one, we are asked to get meditative, to go into silence, to go and do Vipassana sessions. For me, anyway, my home has become a silence zone. What more Vipassana should I seek? I realized also that tears are but the tip of the iceberg of sorrow. Initially, Vishwas's death was such a shock that my mind kept walking umpteen times a day to the spot where it happened. I kept reliving it all the time, so much so that it became my main corridor of my thought 24/7. It was only when I returned from the USA late June, where I, along with my daughter and her family, had gone to meet my son, that reality hit me hard. That's when I realized it was not just the way he died, but he himself is no more. Every corner of the house came alive with his presence and was completely shattered from within. I didn't know how to cope, and definitely antidepressants were not for me, as I usually avoid medication. Sharing my sorrow with my children and dear ones was painful, as it pained them, and then I felt bad that I'm making them feel bad. For relief, I took several sessions of acupuncture, which helped me a lot, and have got down to doing some serious yoga. However, this was inadequate to overcome my loss. I've always believed in following my heart in whatever I do, so I decided to go on an inward journey and find out the depth of my feelings by myself. So whenever I was overpowered with sorrow, I channelized it into penning a poetry in this notepad of my Samsung tablet. Sometimes I wrote 2 poems a day. There was no planning about which topic to choose. I just wrote when a particular thought overpowered me. I chose no time to write the poem. It would happen in the car while traveling for work, in a corner of my daughter's house, sometimes waking up in the middle of the night. I began sending these poems to my children, and they turned around and said, don't you have any happy memories of Papa? Please send only poems which are happy and optimistic. So I told them when they happen, they'll automatically come. So I guess some of them are. There is no logic to the poems I have written. Sometimes I question the very existence of heaven. Sometimes I term Vishwas as guardian angel. I've cursed the sunset as it happened at that time of the day. I've expressed my anguish about Arandi, where we had gone to immerse his ashes. As my poems progressed, there was somewhat a silver lining. I thought I would be able to write just 5 or 6 poems, pining for him. But they turned out to be 33. And after that, I could write no more. My fingers just stopped. Then I thought I should give reference to these poems. So I began scripting the chapters in prose. And then, lo and behold, I myself was surprised that the book just happened, as if it was self-constructing itself. Hence, Grieving to Healing is a compilation of my raw emotions, stark outpourings of my heart. It is also about the healing process in the chapters which speak about the prescription. It is not intellectual, philosophical, or logical. It is a sonography of grief and living with it. It is a glimpse of the emotions that rattle you for anyone who is in this situation. I can safely say it has been a sort of catharsis for me. I hope reading it will help those who have lost their dear ones in some way or the other. Above all, the book is a token of eternal gratitude to Vishwas, who was my best friend and a wonderful human being. My near and dear ones, this one is to laugh about, finally. My near and dear ones tell me that Vishwas must be blessing me from above for having written this book. But I think he must be embarrassed. He always used to tell me that I talk 19 to a dozen. Just when he thought he has silenced me, I've got back to my chatter, but through the book. Sorry, Vishwas, but I know you would have given in and said with a smiling face, okay, fine, if you want it this way. Thank you all for being with me.
That was beautifully expressed, Vinita. To quote the book, when death snatches your spouse away, your world crumbles. Suddenly your vision is blurred, much like the torrential rains hitting the windscreen of a car on a speeding highway. You need powerful wipers and some sunshine to get back into normal gear. I'm sure the book will be just that, as well as an inspiration and comfort to many, even as it gives us an insight into your thoughts and feelings. I would like to repeat that the proceeds from the sales of the book today will go towards Care India Medical Society, which treats cancer patients free of cost. Manjari, please.
A veteran of the IT industry, founder and chairman of 5F World, chairman of Global Talent Track, chairman of Pune City Connect. There are many, many professional achievements that define Dr. Ganesh Natarajan. But why I'm here to speak today about him is quite different, because I'd like to tell you how and why he should be here today and how he is the most apt person to speak about what Vinita said about Vishwas and about her own life as a professional. For so many of us in the audience who worked with Vinita 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, why are we here? Because she and Vishwas managed to connect all of us together, nurture and value the relationships that they put together. And that is what defines Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, who is best known, apart from all his other accomplishments, as the mentor to so many leaders, and for the value and nurturing that he installs and makes a legacy in every organization that he has led so far. Dr. Ganesh Natarajan.
Good afternoon to all of you. I think I'm here primarily as a great friend and well-wisher of Vinita, because having known her through the years, participated in many of her joys, I think it is very appropriate that all of us who are friends, well-wishers of her family are here for her at this point of time. She made a very eloquent speech, and I think it is fitting that we all respect that the book that you will surely read actually reflects this eloquence. I was particularly touched because I told her 3 days ago, please send me a copy of the book. And literally on a flight to Delhi, I read it twice. I mean, it is so eloquent, because I believe many of us are authors in this room. Most of us start with an idea. It flows maybe from the heart, maybe from the mind. It ultimately transfers itself to a pen or a laptop with some cynicism, with something that comes in from the head, says that this is the way it should be written or not be written. But this book, and I'm sure when you read it you will agree, comes entirely from the heart. I mean, it is an unbelievable book, and I believe that, as time goes on, and I was telling Vinita, some of the poems that she's written are truly epic, not in terms of size, but in terms of the sheer enormity of the thought that is being expressed there. So I would strongly urge you to read it. And this is also one of those lovely books where you will obviously read the first chapter, because it's a story, but more important, you can dip into it at any point of time. Anytime you open a page, maybe a tribute by one of Vishwas's friends or relatives, maybe a poem by Vinita, you will find that there is something more to learn from it. So it is, I think, absolutely magnificent what she's written. I just want to share a couple of thoughts. And I still remember after the very sad passing of Vishwas, I didn't even know it, I was in the US. And I write this fortnightly column for Vinita. And I'm sure she'll admit that I'm her most obedient columnist, because I always send my column way before. But even then, and I didn't even know about Vishwas's passing. That Sunday I sent her the column, and she took the trouble to actually write, which she always does, to actually write back to me saying what she thought of it, how nice that I wrote this, etc. And if there is one thing that is Vinita, it is a thorough professional. So I totally agree with her son Viraj that this will make her stronger, that this will enable her to continue what she is, a paragon of excellence for each one of us. And I think that is the real strength of Vinita. I was not privileged to know Vishwas as well as I know Vinita, but I was just very, very impressed by what, Vinita, you have written in the book, by saying that, look, not only Vishwas, but also she herself, Tejaswini and Viraj, I think they epitomize what she calls the 4 values of love, affection, humility, and gratitude. What better can be asked for in our lives? I mean, in this craze for wealth and power and position, if we can practice love, affection, humility, and gratitude, I think not only will we be better human beings, we will make the world a better place. And I'm sure this family has it in them to continue, soldier on, and make things happen. So Vinita, thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you all for being here, because I think we all owe it to Vinita and the family to kind of respect them in their hour of sorrow as well as the urge to move forward. And my favorite author is always Shakespeare. And I was actually dipping into Shakespeare to say that what does he say about recovering from incidents like this? And Shakespeare has said something which is very obvious, saying that, look, just lose yourself in words. And I think Vinita mentioned that the worst thing that we can do in times of grief is to just grieve more and go into ourselves all the time. But either actions or words that are good for people, good for humanity, and Vinita does it so well with her words, the written word as well as the spoken word, is probably the best way to get on with life. I'll end by saying that, look, what Vinita has written right at the end of the book, saying that if Vishwas had been there, what he would have told her is, be not burdened with times of sorrow. I wish you the sunshine of tomorrow. And it is this sunshine of tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, that we all wish for Vinita, for the family, and for each one of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ganesh. I now request our chief guest, Mrs. Amruta Fadnavis, to release the book and then say a few words. Mrs. Amruta Fadnavis. Once again, it is so apt that she's here today. Yeah, me too. It is very, very apt that she's here today. Once again, we know all of her professional achievements, and it is a real pleasure to have you, ma'am, here, just to say a few words.
Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, Dr. Mohan Agashe, Dr. S B Mujumdar, Vinita Kamte ji, Vinita Deshmukh ji, Viraj Deshmukh, friends from media, and all the friends who have come here for today's book launch. Normally, book launches are happy events, and I personally look forward to them. But I wish today that this book launch never happened, and Vinita ji never wrote this book. I wish she did not have to go through what she has gone through. I wish she could have, or we all could always see the storms coming and save our near and dear ones. But it is not possible. As the dramatist James Shirley said, there is no armor against the fate. And here we are launching this book today. This book is actually an heart-wrenching chronicle of Vinita Deshmukh ji and the loss she suffered from, and she is still recovering from it. Your eyes well up when you read her poems in this book. For example, Forlorn, where she says, "I cannot let go of your human form, although my mind knows you are long gone. Damn, what do I do with this paradox? My existence have become so forlorn." This is a powerful narration by a wife who loved her husband dearly and struggled and is perhaps still struggling to get over the highest form of loss. Yet I am glad that Vinita ji chose this path of healing, which as a writer comes naturally to her. We would be knowing that many Americans took to poetry to express their traumas, grief, and shock of 9/11, because words, poetry provide us the emotional cushion. They give us voice to express. They are almost therapeutic. This book is an outpour of a heart that is still healing. And despite the adage, time is the best healer, we all know that some wounds are never healed. Yet they heal enough for us to pick up a little strength and move on, as in Vinita ji's case. She is able to turn to her little tab and go tapping away, pouring her every emotion from emptiness to regret, to helplessness, to deep sorrow. We actually feel her journey through her poems. We can resonate with her emotions of loss and sadness, because these feelings are universal. I'm sure Vinita ji's efforts would definitely help all of us to get out of our personal sorrows, especially the chapter Doctor's Prescription, written by Mohan Agashe ji. That is a must read for everyone. Speaking about Vinita ji, she has always been an inspiration to all journalists. In her 28-year-old career, she has worked extensively as a journalist, RTI activist, and a writer. And people like Vinita ji are the people with highest level of integrity, and we need them the most. I'm sure Vishwas ji would always want to see you still working for the people, for your own satisfaction, for others, and continue your struggles, your journey. And that is what will bring smile to his soul. So I'm sure you'll continue this. And as I pay my tribute to great soul that Vishwas ji was, here is a message for all of us in William Ellingham's 4 lines. Everything passes and vanishes, everything leaves its trace, and often you see in a footstep what you could not see in a face. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you, Mrs. Amruta Fadnavis. It is wonderful. We now go on to the next speaker, that is Dr. Mohan Agashe. He's always known for his surprises, and if you read his contribution to the book, because Dr. Mohan Agashe needs absolutely no introduction to anyone who's lived in Maharashtra and watched any Marathi TV serial, movie, and of course Hindi movies. But apart from all his professional accomplishments, again, as the former head of Department of Psychiatry at Sassoon Hospital, the Maharashtra Institute of Mental Health and all of that, he's the person who always says the right thing at the right time. And through all the complexity that Vinita defined of all her struggle of getting over what there was, he's the one who said the right thing at the right time, and I hope to hear from him today. Thank you.
All my friends in the audience, Vinita, Amruta ji, Ganesh, second Vinita. Well, I had my encounter with disasters in Latur. In '93, when the Latur earthquake happened, so many people lost their lives and everything. And that time I was head of the Maharashtra Institute of Mental Health, and we volunteered for psychosocial rehabilitation. And what was surprising for me is only one experience of that. Those little towns, Kilari, Holi, Petsangvi, and other things, were not even, only one state transport bus would go a day. Suddenly was flooded with Red Cross, UNICEF, so many NGOs coming to help them and provide them with so many things, utensils, medicines, food, and at that time we volunteered for psychosocial rehabilitation. Did it have any place? Right. And what surprised me was one thing. Once they were physically rescued and settled in temporary settlements, I went with a team of my psychologists, students, and psychiatrists to see. We went in a van, and as you know, about 10 people from each house walked in, surrounded the van in which we came to see what did we bring. And when they saw we didn't bring anything at all, right? No food, no medicine, no utensils, nothing, all of them went back. We already had the list of whatever the damage is done, and all my team members went to different houses to find out exactly where was the human loss, where was the cattle loss, what was happened. After about an hour and a half, when they came back, with each one, again there were 10, 15 people, so again we had a crowd of 150. And the only thing they wanted from us to know is that we will definitely come back to meet them and talk to them. I think that's the importance of psychosocial rehabilitation. It is something unseen, not seen, but that reinforced my will, that some kind of. Now that was a macro disaster. And here we are at a micro disaster. Micro disaster is because the tremendous loss is only experienced by that person who has it. Everybody else has to imagine it. And there is a tremendous gap between imagining and experiencing. Why I'm grateful to her? Because she decided to share her experience on a broader scale. And for everyone else, as she perceived it, as she said, it's almost a pornographic description of her experience. And let me tell you, I think for everyone, experience is different. I'm sure some of us had it, some of us won't have it, will have it. My only question to her was, when I met her first time, already 4 months had passed, and so I thought she must be, grief should be brief. That's the best way to heal the grief. But she wasn't there. And I said, Vinita, you're so lucky. What a fortunate death Vishwas had. As a doctor, I tell you, I wish every fortunate person should have that kind of death. And then I asked her, you were not ready for it, but if you were ready, what would be the image you would like to see him die? In a hospital with a lot of tubes inside and inside, is that the image you want to have? He walked out of your life exactly in the same manner he walked into your life. That's just life. So I never asked her to forget anything, try to get over it. I said, you have it. It's a treasure for you. Treasure it, but you were there before and you are there after. And something from my play, you may be close to anybody, to anything. Ultimately, you come in alone and you go alone. And we have to be ready for that at any point of time. So I'm very, very, not only happy, thankful that you chose the path which you knew best to cope with it. So there's no point in imitating. Everybody should choose the path for the same destination. And I'm glad she is very close to where she wants to arrive, and she will be there very soon, back with us. Thank you, Vinita. Thanks a lot.
Our next speaker is Vinita Kamte. She has authored the book To the Last Bullet after her husband, ACP Ashok Kamte, was killed in action, along with 2 officers and their men in the 26/11 Mumbai terror attack. Today, she is courageously and beautifully bringing up her 2 boys while managing a petrol pump. Vinita Kamte, please.
Esteemed guests and my dear friends, my acquaintance with Vinita began on a professional note after the death of my husband, which was an unexpected shock to me. And writing of my book, To the Last Bullet with Vinita, to a large extent, helped me in pouring out my feelings. Vinita gave me immense support at that time, and I'm so fortunate to have a person like her as a close friend now. I met Vishwas several times during the writing of the book and deeply regret that Ashok and Vishwas could never meet, as they both embrace the same values. I hope that somewhere in another world they meet. They say time is a great healer. I really cannot say whether time heals this wound completely, as a part of you is gone with the person, never to come back. However, life goes on and we find a newer meaning to life. After the death of my husband, one has to deal with grief at different levels. Personal grief, then garnering strength to support the immediate family members who are similarly affected, and then the expectations and conditioning of the society. When you lose your husband, your children and your in-laws are also affected. So they look up to you with the hope that you will be able to handle everything the way it was when your husband was alive. We cannot ever replace the loss, but try and compensate by giving them the strength that everything will be fine. Your inner strength comes from the fact that they are all dependent on you, and you have no choice but to rise to the occasion. We find the strength and courage we didn't know we had in that make or break moment. As for the societal expectations, the advice to move on is advocated with such bewildering haste that the only option is to mask your sorrow. Vinita's poem in the book titled The Widowhood is very significant of some nasty traditions that we follow. Vinita talks about the widows of Varanasi whose heads were shaved and were forced to wear white. This is one extreme. But in our Hindu traditions, among some educated, a widow is considered inauspicious to do arti. They want savashnis, that is, married ladies whose husbands are still alive, to perform it. It can be very disconcerting to be caught in a situation like this. I faced a situation like this at my niece's wedding. 5 married ladies were required to do the aarti of the bride. And in order not to put anyone in an awkward situation, I stayed behind so that no one could see me. However, my sister called out to me and asked me to do the aarti first. One of the educated ladies who was sitting there gestured to me, "Don't go ahead, it is considered inauspicious." I was holding back my tears and wondering what to do. My mother, who was sitting next to her, signaled to me and said, "Go ahead and perform the aarti," and later came back and told me, "Don't pay attention to her." I'm grateful to the environment I've been brought up in and married into to not believe in such archaic practices. Society should rise above such taboos. Does taking away the symbol of marriage, that is the sindoor, the bindi, the bangles, and the Mangal Sutra, not enhance the feeling of loss and emptiness that a woman is already going through? Does the woman cease to be the wife of the man she is married and loved? We as a society need to firmly discourage these ritualistic practices. Grief is something no one can fix. Just as we are unable to talk about death, we are unable to talk about grief. The emotions are so personal and sometimes difficult to share. However, Vinita in her poems has unabashedly and beautifully poured her heart out and soul to convey her love and loss for Vishwas. Not everyone has the ability to express the anguish, turmoil, anger, and acceptance of death to put it in a poetic form. The book is not only a cathartic experience for Vinita, but for anyone who's grieving the loss of their loved one. The book puts you in a comfort zone that it is okay to question death and cry your heart out. That grieving is not a sign of weakness, it is the price of love. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinita. I now request Nitin Kirtane to please welcome Dr. S B Mujumdar.
Our last speaker of the day, Dr. Mujumdar, is here, and we're waiting to hear him speak. Once again, we are sitting in a place where it's the icon of the empire he has built and what stands for quality education for decades now. Once again, why is he the best person to be here? For all the stories that happened before Symbiosis was set up by him, and which is why Vinita said Dr. Mujumdar is the one who should speak about the stories of having overcome all the difficulties and then being where he is today and nurturing so many students who are doing so much in the world. Dr. S B Mujumdar, please.
Sabagati Amruta Fadnavis, Vinita Deshmukh, Dr. Mohan Agashe, Vinita Kamte, Natarajan, बंधू भगिनी. सर्वप्रथम खूप वेळानं आल्याबद्दल सर्वांची मी क्षमा मागतो. दुसऱ्या एका कार्यक्रमाला मला जावं लागत असल्यामुळे आणि पुण्यातल्या गर्दीमुळे मी वेळेवर पोहोचू शकलो नाही. विनीताने मला फोन करून सांगितलं की मी 2 मिनिटं बोलावं. इंडियन एक्सप्रेस म्हणजे त्या होत्या आणि इंडियन एक्सप्रेसची एक टॅगलाईन अशी आहे की जर्नलिझम ऑफ करेज. आणि ज्यावेळी विनीता देशमुख तिथे काम करत होत्या त्याचवेळी प्रकाश कर्दळे हे त्याचे संपादक होते आणि त्यामुळं विनीता देशमुखांचा आणि माझा परिचय झाला. प्रकाश कर्दळे हे राईट टू इन्फॉर्मेशन ॲक्ट अंमलात आणावा यासाठी खूप धडपडत होते आणि त्यांना साथ देणारी इंडियन एक्सप्रेसमध्ये जर एक व्यक्ती असेल तर ती विनीता देशमुख होते. दुर्दैवानं प्रकाश कर्दळेंचं निधन फार अल्पवयात झालं आणि मला अजूनही आठवतं विनीता ते ज्यावेळी गेले त्यावेळी तू किती रडत होतीस हे मी स्वतः पाहिलेलं आहे. विनीता देशमुखांच्या जडणघडणीमध्ये प्रकाश कर्दळेंचा खूप मोठा हात होता. आणि ज्याप्रमाणे प्रकाश कर्दळेंनी राईट टू इन्फॉर्मेशनसाठी प्रयत्न केले, त्याचप्रमाणे विनिता देशमुखांनी सुद्धा राईट टू इन्फॉर्मेशनमध्ये खूप इंटरेस्ट घेऊन अनेक केसेस तिनं लढवल्या. आणि म्हणून मी म्हणेन की विनिता देशमुख ही एक लढाऊ पत्रकार आहे. तिच्याबद्दल खूप बोलता येण्यासारखं आहे. आयुष्यात तिला खूप मान सन्मान मिळाले, लाडली अवॉर्ड मिळालं, पुणे टाइम्स कन्सोर्शियम अवॉर्ड मिळाला, अनेक अवॉर्ड्स मिळाले. पण मी जे विनिता देशमुखांचं जे पाहिलेलं आहे ते तिचं धाडस, त्याच्यानंतर आपल्या पतीवर असणारी निष्ठा आणि असीम प्रेम, आणि पती निंदानंतर त्यांनी जे काही दुःख सहन केलं, ज्या पद्धतीनं सहन केलं, ते कौतुकास्पद आहे. पुस्तक वाचताना मला त्यांनी सांगितलेल्या अनेक आठवणी माझ्या मनात जागृत झाल्या. पण मला एक सांगावं असं वाटतं विनिता, की माणूस जरी गेला तरी त्याची जी जीन्स असतात ती अमर असतात. जीन्स आर इमॉर्टल, द बॉडीज ऑफ मेन अँड वुमेन आर मॉर्टल. आणि म्हणून तुमच्या पतीचे जे जीन्स आहेत ते रियामध्ये, तुझ्या इतर मुलामध्ये, नातवंडामध्ये ही जिवंत आहेत असं मला वाटतं. आणि कुठलीही व्यक्ती जोपर्यंत त्या व्यक्तीचं स्मरण आपल्या मनात असतं ती आपल्यातून जात नसते असं मला प्रामाणिकपणे वाटतं. आणि तुमचे पुस्तक वाचल्यानंतर ज्या पद्धतीनं तुम्ही त्यांची जी काही आठवणी लिहिलेल्या आहेत ते अजूनही तुमच्या मनात जागृत आहेत. आणि त्या आठवणीतून तुमचे पतीसुद्धा आजही जिवंत आहेत असं मला वाटतं. त्यांना माझ्या श्रद्धांजली अर्पण करतो. धन्यवाद.
Our chief guest, Mrs. Fadnavis, has to leave. A vote of thanks for her for being with us here today. Thank you so much once again, ma'am. I now request Mrs. Mohini Kirtane to give the vote of thanks. Mohini.
Good afternoon, everyone. We come to the end of our function today. But before I start with a vote of thanks, I would like to pay a tribute to Vishwas with these words. The best we laughed is when we laughed with you. The best we enjoyed is definitely with you. The best we experienced is because of you. The best life we had is thanks to you. And the saddest we've been is being without you. We love you, Vishwas, and miss you all the time. Service before self was Vishwas's hallmark. Vinita, you've been inspired to write this book in large to help obliterate your sorrow. But what is truly commendable is that even in this moment of sorrow, your desire to help others overcome their sorrow. You have followed Vishwas in implementing his principles, so I really and truly feel that Vishwas and you are role models to follow. I would like to thank Mrs. Amruta Fadnavis, she had to leave unfortunately, for having graced this occasion. We are grateful that she made it a point to be here today. And indeed, Vishwas would have been honored to know that she'd spared the time. Wherever he is, I'm sure he must be smiling a gentle smile. Dr. Mujumdar, I thank you for being with us today. Your words on Vinita, your praise of her, really shows and proves that she is a person to greatly admire.
Dr. Mohan Agashe, you've been a stalwart in giving us advice on how to face a crisis. We truly appreciate your presence today, and you too have given us an insight into Vinita's personality by describing her various traits, particularly her fight for right to justice. Mrs. Vinita Kamte, you have yourself personally undergone this crisis. I can't express our gratitude enough, so I will just say a simple, heartfelt thank you, for you have been truly supportive. I thank Mr. Sudarshan Cherry, Managing Director, Author Press, for having immediately consented to publish this book and doing it so well and in time. I thank Commodore Dilip Mohpatra for writing the curtain raiser, Vinita Kamte for writing the foreword, Usha Somaya ji for helping Vinita at every stage of this endeavor, and Vandana Patnaik for doing the editing of it. I thank Anand Agashe, Sandeep Khardikar, Sanjay Pawar, Prasanna Kumar Keskar for helping Vinita in organizing this function. Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, I'm taking your name a little late for the simple reason that we are really deeply indebted to you today. Your words on the book, the very fact that you went through the book and the impact that the book has had on you has definitely, I'm sure, will lead a lot of people to read the book. Thank you so much for this. I'd like to thank each one of you who has written a tribute to Vishwas in the book. Those words and your presence today proves how dear Vishwas was to his friends and to all those he came in contact with. A special mention must be made of Mr. Suryavanshi, who has helped us today in meeting all the stage sound arrangements and perfecting them. I thank Vinita's friends, Kalyani and Manjari, for comparing, and Shehnaz and Shamim for helping out backstage with the background arrangements. Mr. Takakar has done a commendable and difficult job of translating the job into Marathi to be released in January. Thank you. I thank Mr. Ulhas Latkar for agreeing to publish the book in Marathi in a manner as if it was his own personal project. I also thank Shubhangi Joshi and her associate, who without hesitation agreed to sing today. If Vishwas had been here today, he would have loved your rendition of his favorite song, which you will sing now. Last but not the least, Dr. Colonel Balasubramaniam. He's not here today with us, but we owe him a great deal for all the encouragement and freedom he's given to Vishwas, to Vinita, to write this book. To conclude, I request Shubhangi to sing one of Vishwas's most favorite songs, Achal ke tujhe main leke chalu.
I think I'm going to enjoy singing this song just as much. This is one of my favorite also. And Vinita, this one for you.
आँचल के तुझे मैं लेके चलूं एक ऐसे गगन के तले जहाँ ही ना हो आंसू भी ना हो बस प्यार ही प्यार बने आँचल के तुझे मैं लेके चलूं एक ऐसे गगन के तले जहाँ आंसू भी ना हो बस प्यार ही प्यार बने एक ऐसे गगन की तरह सूरज की पहली किरण से आशा का सवेरा जागे सूरज की पहली किरण से होती खेले कभी छाए मेरे लंबी सी बगर रखने जहाँ ही न हो आंसू भी न हो बस प्यार ही प्यार पले चल के तुझे मैं लेके चलूं एक ऐसी गगन की तले जहाँ गम भी न हो आंसू भी न हो बस प्यार ही प्यार पले बस प्यार ही प्यार पले. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shubhangi. Vishwas, I am sure wherever you are, I am sure you will have found such a place somewhere. Thank you, all of you.